Welcome back to another deep dive. Today we're getting into something pretty profound. What does it actually mean to live a spiritual life?
Yeah, and we're using some really powerful insights from, well, a giant of 20th century spiritual writing, Thomas Merton.
That's right. We'll be working with excerpts from his book, Life and Holiness. Merton, for anyone maybe less familiar, was a Trappist monk.
But also, a poet, a really influential writer. His work reached way beyond just one tradition, speaking to all sorts of people.
Absolutely. So our mission here is to kind of unpack his ideas about holiness, which can sound a bit intimidating maybe.
It can, yeah.
And we want to pull out the core principles, those key nuggets for you, the listener, wherever you are on your own path. Like, what did Merton mean by holiness?
And crucially, how did he suggest we, well, approach it? How do we actually live it day to day?
Right. It feels like he wants us to get beyond just surface ideas.
Definitely. Beyond simple rules or, just lofty ideals, he's pointing towards something deeper.
Okay, let's dig in then. And Merton doesn't really waste time, does he? He starts right off by challenging how we usually think about sin and faith.
He really does. When we think sin, we often go straight to, like, breaking a rule, right? Doing something wrong.
Yeah, specific action.
But Merton hits us with something, well, much more radical, I think. His definition is quite different. For him, sin isn't just a transgression. It's
Yeah.
a refusal, fundamentally. A refusal of our own deepest spiritual reality. It's about refusing to align ourselves with um, the divine will.
Wow, hey, so a refusal to be who we're meant to be, is that the idea?
Exactly. He talks about it as rejecting this inner order, this peace that comes from, union with the divine. It's turning away from what we were created for. He uses phrases like being sons of God or images of God.
So the nugget here is, sin isn't just doing bad things, it's more like this deep existential no to our true spiritual nature.
Precisely. It completely shifts the focus, doesn't it?
It really does. So if that's sin,
Yeah.
how does he define faith? Because again, we often just think of it as, agreeing with certain beliefs.
Yes.
Mental stuff.
Right, ticking the boxes of doctrine. And Merton says, well, that's not enough. It might even miss the whole point.
Oh.
He gives us this really key quote. He says, a person can be detached and spiritual in a rational, idealistic kind of way and still be in the flesh.
Okay. So still disconnected somehow.
Yeah. He continues, what distinguishes flesh from spirit is the virtue of faith. And here's the kicker. Faith is not merely the acquiescence of the mind to certain truths. It is the gift of our whole being to truth itself, to the Word of God.
Our whole being given to truth.
Wow.
So faith isn't just thinking something is true. It's like a total surrender, an orientation of your entire self.
That's it, exactly. So for you, the listener, maybe the takeaway is Merton's faith isn't just in your head. It's a posture, a stance your whole being takes towards reality, towards truth.
It really makes you question, what do I mean when I say I have faith? Is it just mental agreement, or is that surrender?
It's a much deeper ask, for sure.
And Merton connects this deep faith straight to prayer, doesn't he? He calls prayer the heart of faith.
He does. And he bases this on the New Testament idea, that prayer is how we access the kingdom of heaven. It's how we seek and, importantly, receive that supernatural aid that's promised.
And we seek it sincerely.
Right. So faith is that surrender, and prayer is like the act of living within that surrender. It's the connection point.
Okay, that makes sense. Now, often when people think holiness, they picture someone maybe really detached, floating above the world's problems, immune to suffering.
Yeah, the sort of stereotype of the saint in an ivory tower. And Merton really pushes back hard against that. This is another huge nugget from him.
What does he say?
He says, and this is a direct quote, sanctity is not a matter of being less human, but more human.
More human. That feels backwards, almost, compared to some ascetic ideas. What does he mean by more human?
He means becoming more fully alive to all of it. The whole human experience. It means a greater capacity for, yes, concern, for suffering, for understanding, for sympathy.
Okay, the difficult stuff.
But also for humor, for joy, for appreciation of the good and beautiful things of life. See, holiness isn't about shrinking from life. It's about expanding your heart, your capacity for all of it.
So it actually means being more present to the world, including its pain and injustice.
Exactly. You have to be aware of suffering, and then you need to act honorably, compassionately, and importantly, not just passively stand by while suffering happens.
Right, not contributing to it through inaction.
Precisely. He was very aware of the world's pain. And, this connects to how he saw charity, too. He thought we often treat charity as just a moral luxury.
Like something we do to feel good about ourselves or earn points.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of, oh, I did my good deed for the day thinking. He says that's immature.
So what's true charity for Merton?
The nugget here is simple but deep. True charity is love. It's not just an action you perform for some reward, internal or external. It flows naturally from that deeper way of being, that surrendered self we talked about.
Which really prompts a question for all of us, doesn't it?
Yeah.
How do you practice charity? Is it a duty? Is it transactional? Or is it rooted in love?
It's a challenging question.
Yeah. And that brings us right into the practicalities, the reality of the spiritual journey. Merton is very clear. It's not easy street. He calls it long and difficult. Ideals are definitely going to get tested.
Oh, for sure. And discipline comes into play here. He's quite frank about needing to mortify even some legitimate cravings. Seriously, no compromises on certain things. It's not just drifting along.
Okay, so effort is required.
Mm-hmm.
But given how hard it is, failure seems inevitable, right? What does he say when we mess up, when we fall short?
He absolutely knows failure will happen. It's part of it. But he gives this really important warning. Beware of morbid self-hatred.
Morbid self-hatred.
Yeah, especially the temptation to think that beating yourself up is somehow humility. He says real humility isn't despising yourself. It's just seeing yourself clearly, acknowledging your limits without the drama or the self-pity.
Okay, but this is where it starts to feel, almost impossible, doesn't it? If the goal is perfection, and we're limited and we're going to fail, how does anyone get there?
And that is exactly where Merton brings in the absolutely essential role of divine grace. This is maybe the core nugget of the whole thing.
Grace, okay.
He emphasizes what he calls uncreated grace. He describes it as the Holy Spirit present within us, like a sweet guest dwelling in our soul. This is the power source. This is what makes transformation possible.
Right, and he has that amazing quote about perfection that just flips everything around. To be perfect, then, is not so much a matter of seeking God with ardor and generosity,
as of being found, loved, and possessed by God. Go on.
In such a way that his action in us makes us completely generous and helps us to transcend our limitations and react against our own weakness.
See? The nugget is huge. Perfection isn't mainly about your striving. It's primarily about being received, being acted upon by divine love. And that love is what empowers your own generosity, your ability to overcome your weaknesses.
It's a radical shift in perspective.
Yeah.
But he holds this alongside something else that seems almost contradictory. He says, spiritual perfection is beyond our mortal ability. Okay, got that. But accepting defeat is laziness.
Yes. And that's the fascinating paradox, isn't it? Perfection is a gift, totally beyond what we can achieve ourselves. And yet, just giving up, passively accepting failure, that's not okay either.
So, what is our role then? If we can't earn it by striving, but we can't just be lazy, what do we do?
Our role, Merton says, is to avail ourselves of God's gifts.
Avail ourselves, like make use of them, be open.
Exactly. We need the grace. Merton believes God offers it freely, constantly, but we have to be open to receiving it. We have to cooperate with it, put it into practice when it's given. He puts it bluntly. If we do not become saints, it is because we do not avail ourselves of his gift.
Wow. Okay, so the nugget is, grace is essential, it's freely given, but it demands our active participation, our yes.
Our cooperation, yeah.
Okay, moving on from the struggle aspect.
Yeah.
Merton also talks a lot about interior peace. He sees it as crucial for really knowing God. He says, without this interior peace, we cannot truly come to know God.
Right, and he's clear about where this peace comes from. It is not the work of force, but the fruit of love. And then he connects it back. And love means submission to Christ. So peace circles back to that deep surrender again.
But then, just when you think you've got it figured out, he throws in another paradox, a really striking one.
The one about peace and the sword.
Exactly. Jesus said he brought not peace but the sword, but also promised a peace the world can't give. And Merton points out that we, with our own anxious efforts, our worldly ways, we are not capable of producing such peace by our own efforts.
We just can't manufacture it ourselves. And this leads to maybe the most challenging, most interesting nugget of all.
Okay, I'm ready.
Merton suggests that we can only find this true, deep interior peace when we have, and this is his phrase, in some sense renounced peace and forgotten about it.
Wait, hang on. You find peace by giving up looking for it, by forgetting about it. That sounds completely nuts. It goes against everything.
It totally does, doesn't it? Every self-help book tells you to visualize peace, strive for peace, practice peace.
Yeah.
But Merton's suggesting that true divine peace isn't something we achieve through our techniques or our willpower. It's something that, well, it sort of arrives when we stop frantically trying to grab it,
Yeah.
when we let go of the anxiety about having it.
So it's a peace that comes as a gift, maybe, when you're detached from needing the outcome,
That seems to be the idea. It's received in surrender, not achieved by effort.
which connects perfectly to how he describes the whole path of holiness itself. He uses some really strong language, almost shocking. He calls it a kind of madness.
Yeah, the folly of abandoning all concern for ourselves, both in the material and in the spiritual order. That's quite a statement.
It really is. This madness is about fully entrusting ourselves to the divine. And he says this is like a kind of death to our temporal selves.
Our ego, basically, our usual self-centered way of operating.
And this total surrender, this plunge into our own emptiness he talks about, where real freedom is found. He hammers this point home. It is inaccessible to all our merely human efforts and plans.
You can't make it happen.
Right. He says you cannot do it by relaxing or by striving, by thinking or not thinking, by acting or not acting. It's beyond all those polarities.
So, if you can't do it through any action or non-action, what's left? How do you even move forward?
He says there's only one answer. It requires perfect faith, exultant hope, transformed by a completely spiritual love of Christ.
Okay. Faith, hope, love.
But then he immediately says, again, this is a pure gift.
Another paradox. If it's a pure gift, are we just supposed to sit around and wait? What can we actually do?
We can dispose ourselves to receive it. That's our part.
Choose ourselves.
He tells us how. Through fortitude, humility, patience, qualities we cultivate. And above all, by simple fidelity to his will in every circumstance of our ordinary life.
Okay. So it comes back to that daily practice, that simple faithfulness in the small things.
Exactly. And that leads right into his ultimate, very simple principle for what holiness really is. The final big nugget.
Which is?
To live not according to our own desire and our own judgment, but according to God's will for us. It's that radical shift of orientation we started with, but lived out simply day by day.
Wow. It sounds so simple yet so profound. And what's the result, according to Merton, for someone who actually lives like this? A true lover of God.
He says something pretty astonishing. For that person, all things, whether they appear good or evil, are in actuality good.
Whoa. Even things that look evil.
Apparently, he says all things manifest the loving mercy of God. For someone living in that total trust, he says, obstacles no longer exist. The path becomes one of confidence and love.
It's not that difficulties vanish, maybe, but that they're seen completely differently. Through this lens of divine will and love.
That seems to be it. It's a fundamental transformation of perspective.
Okay, so let's try and pull these threads together for you, the listener. What are the big takeaways from Merton's Life and Holiness?
Well, first, he totally shakes up our usual ideas, right? Sin isn't just rule-breaking, it's refusing your true self. Faith isn't just belief, it's total surrender.
Right. And holiness isn't about being less human. It's about becoming more human, more capacity for everything. And that's lived out through prayer, the heart of faith, and compassionate action in the world.
Then there's the reality check. The path is hard, you'll fail. But morbid self-hatred isn't humility. And crucially, you can't do it alone. It all hinges on divine grace.
A grace that's freely given but needs our active cooperation, our availing ourselves of the gift.
And peace, that elusive interior peace. It's not found by chasing it. Paradoxically, it might come when you renounce the chase itself.
Which leads to that idea of holiness as a kind of madness, abandoning self-concern, dying to the ego. Which sounds radical, but the core principle boils down to something very simple.
Simple fidelity. Just living according to what you understand as the divine will right here in your ordinary, messy life. And that ultimately leads to seeing everything through a lens of love and confidence.
So based on all that, here are a few things you, the listener, might want to chew on or even try out.
Yeah, some practical reflections.
Exactly. First, maybe just examine your own ideas. What's your working definition of sin, of faith? Is your faith more mental agreement, or is there that element of surrender?
Good question. And how about prayer? Is it really functioning as the heart of your spiritual life? Is it your connection point to something beyond your own resources?
Then think about engagement with the world. How do you relate to suffering, to injustice? Are you growing in that more human capacity Merton talks about, or tempted to pull back? And how does charity show up for you? Is it duty or love?
And maybe try focusing on that simple fidelity. Not huge dramatic gestures necessarily, but just aligning with what feels right, with the divine will as you perceive it in the small, everyday moments.
Yeah, in the ordinary circumstances. And finally, consider what it means for you to avail yourself of grace. How can you practice being more open, more receptive to help, to strength, to insight that doesn't come just from your own effort? How do you prepare yourself, dispose yourself for that pure gift?
Those are great points. And maybe one final thought to leave you with, something that really captures that Merton paradox we kept bumping into.
Go on.
He suggests finding peace by, in a sense, renouncing it.
Yeah.
He calls the whole spiritual path a kind of madness of abandoning self-concern. So the question is, what comfort or maybe what challenge do you find in that really radical idea? The idea that true peace, true holiness might actually be found not in trying harder, not in controlling more, but in this profound act of letting go and trusting. Something to think about.